just get it in general. Like I ask questions like the the neo tract is mainly made up of C fibers. That's false. There's two false questions. Things like that. Even more so with this next pathway, which is very, very difficult. Now, it says, opioid receptors are located most densely in the periaqueductal gray matter, which you don't know what that is yet, but that's one of those way stations where the emotional component meets the physical component of pain. Okay? The raphe magnus, you hear the word raphe, what do you think? Serotonin. The substantia gelatinosa, we talked about that. That's where the C fibers synapse. And the anterior pituitary gland. You also have quite a bit of them up in the thalamus too, but these are the major areas right here. Now, not only do you have a pain pathway in the brain, you have an analgesic pathway. And this is what I'm saying, it's very involved, but just get the bottom line. Okay. You have an area of the brain called the PAG. In fact, if you look back, and I'll look back, you don't have to look, in this picture, they have periaqueductal gray, they have the C fiber going right up through the periaqueductal gray. So even as you're causing pain, you're also going to activate the periaqueductal gray, either maybe to cause more pain or to turn on the analgesic system. We don't know. Okay. By the way, in your reading handout, see this word "da"? It's supposed to be B-E. That's on the endogenous analgesic mechanism. Where it says "da" down here in the thing, that should say B-E, B. Okay, let's start. Pictures help immensely. All right. What you have is the analgesic pathway not operating when there's no pain. There's no pain, it's basically in standby mode. And the reason the pathway is in standby mode is you have two GABAergic neurons. Okay? And what's GABA always? Inhibitory. So here in the PAG, and here in the area called the raphe magnus, you have these GABAergic neurons which are shutting down the analgesic system. It's not in operation, it's on standby. Now, when there is pain perceived, you have these certain neurons in higher brain centers, okay, cortex, etc., that contain, we call it a POMC neuron. A POMC neuron means it contains the neuropeptide endorphin. The endorphins. The endorphins are natural opioids. The endorphins. You ever hear of beta-endorphin? Yeah. What gets you high when you're running? Runner's high. Beta-endorphin. Okay, so you have these neurons, they call them POMC neurons, which make the endorphins. Now the endorphins, what they do is they bind to this GABA receptor. These little things are opiate receptors right here. See those little dots on the GABAergic neurons? They're opiate receptors. And what beta-endorphin does is turns off the GABAergic neuron. We're going to find out the opiates are inhibitory. How are they inhibitory? One of the things they do is they open potassium channels. What happens when you open a potassium channel? Hyperpolarize. So what you've done is so you have the pain, the beta-endorphin comes down, binds to the GABA neuron, and inhibits the GABAergic neuron. Well, that GABAergic neuron, then, once it no longer fires, it disinhibits. The GABAergic neuron, once it's turned off, you disinhibit another type of neuropeptide which binds to opiate receptors called the enkephalin. It's an enkephalin-making neuron. Enkephalin is another type of natural opioid. And what that does is this enkephalin neuron, remember now it's disinhibited, what it does goes down and releases enkephalins onto this GABAergic neuron. And enkephalins are natural opioids. You open potassium channels, and guess what? You hyperpolarize the GABAergic neuron, and it doesn't fire. So what happens to this serotonin neuron? It does fire. So the serotonin comes down into the spinal cord, the dorsal the spinal cord, where the pain afferent is coming in. Remember, the pain afferent comes into the spinal cord? And what you find in there, in the spinal cord, is you have another enkephalin-producing neuron. Only this time, serotonin excites that enkephalin neuron. Excites the enkephalin neuron. Okay? So here we go. Here's our pain afferent. It's coming in to the spinal cord. And mainly this is occurring in the substantia gelatinosa, because we said most of the time it affects C fibers. So here comes the pain afferent in, and what it does is it releases excitatory substances. One of the major excitatory substances is something called substance P. However, it can also release glutamate, and sometimes even acetylcholine, which are all excitatory. What they do is they excite, we're going to call this the T cell. T cell just means transmission. Remember we said how you act, the pain afferent activates the T cell, and then the T cell goes up the spinothalamic tract. So this T cell is the beginning of the spinothalamic tract. Remember there's two of them, but mainly we're affecting the C fibers. Okay, so once again, C fiber is activated, okay, releases excitatory neurotransmitters like substance P, like glutamate, like acetylcholine. That activates the T cell, and then the T cell is the beginning of the spinothalamic tract we already talked about. And this thing goes up to the brain, up to the thalamus of the brain, and causes the pain response. We already talked about that. Now it turns out that this enkephalin neuron, okay, branches out and releases enkephalins onto two sites. One of the sites it releases the enkephalins at is on the terminals of the pain afferent. What do you think happens? You don't release them. Couple reasons. One, you open, well, more likely what you do is that you prevent the influx of calcium. That on the terminal of the pain afferent, you inhibit the influx of calcium. What's that going to do? Yeah, you don't release. Remember, calcium is required to release any neurotransmitter. So what happens is you inhibit the influx of calcium. You don't release any neurotransmitter. Okay, excitatory neurotransmitter. The other place it synapses is on the T cell itself. And what do you think it does on that T cell? Opens potassium channel and hyperpolarizes the T cell. So basically, all in all, you don't send the pain message up through the spinothalamic tract. That's your analgesic system. Want to go through it again? Yes. Yeah, because you don't have to go into detail, just sort of in the most general way. Okay, so the brain senses pain. And what happens is a POMC neuron in a higher part of the brain projects down to the periaqueductal prey, the PAG, and releases endorphins. The endorphins bind to receptors on the GABAergic neuron and inhibit the firing of the GABAergic neuron. So this enkephalin neuron does fire, and it projects down into the raphe magnus. The raphe magnus, what it does there is the enkephalins bind to the GABA receptors, not GABA, opioid receptors on the GABAergic neurons and inhibit this GABAergic neuron. So the serotonin does flow down, okay? The serotonin does flow down and activates this enkephalin neuron. This enkephalin neuron, what it does is it sort of splits. One of the places it goes is to the terminal of the pain afferent, inhibits the influx of calcium so you don't release substance P, glutamate, acetylcholine, whatever it may be. So that means you don't activate the T cell. Another thing that the enkephalin does, it directly projects to the T cell, binds to opioid receptors on the T cell, and opens potassium channels and hyperpolarizes it. So therefore, no pain signal is sent up to the higher centers. Remember, you have to send it up to the higher center to fill it. Okay? And most of this occurs in the substantia gelatinosa, which is laminate 2, basically. And that's where C fibers are. Remember we said we don't want to inhibit the sharp pain. We want to inhibit the dull, constant pain. By the way, if you wanted to inhibit the sharp pain, what do you have to do? What type of compound do you use? Local anesthetic. What's a local anesthetic do?
Vasoconstriction.
Local anesthetic blocks sodium channels. For you're on the fire, you have to have sodium come in. So it'll block the sharp pain and the slow pain, basically. Okay, so here's all this. One of the other things that's not shown in here, I wish I would have put it in, is you have the locus coeruleus. Okay? The locus coeruleus contains what? Norepinephrine. And what it does is it also comes down here and synapses on the T cell, and it inhibits the T cell, probably via an alpha-2 receptor. Probably via an alpha-2, because alpha-2s open up potassium channels. Now, the locus coeruleus carries norepinephrine. The rhabdoid magnus carries serotonin. Both of those are involved in analgesia, right? If you follow what the serotonin did and what the norepinephrine did, they're both involved in analgesia. What is the antidepressant that inhibits the reuptake of both norepinephrine and serotonin? What's the one? It's the antidepressant for the painful symptoms of depression. I'm hoping you pull its name up because I can't remember it right now. Oh, jeez. Well, I can't think of its name. First day back. Duloxetine. Cymbalta. But before that, they used to use things like, and they still can do, amitriptyline, tricyclic antidepressants, block the reuptake of norepinephrine and serotonin. That's why you see sometimes antidepressants used as adjuncts or to treat neuropathic pain. And there's your reason. There's the reason. Remember, they block the reuptake of serotonin and norepinephrine, so you're going to have more serotonin in the cleft and more norepinephrine in the cleft, and that's going to contribute to your analgesic effect. There's the reason. Okay? Another thing can activate this enkephalin neuron, and that's large mechanofibers. Let me ask you something. Someone throws a baseball at you and hits you in the arm. What's the first thing you do?
Punch it back. Go to first base.
You do. She's got it. Rachel got it. Now, pressure. You rub it. What that rubbing does is activates the mechanoreceptor, the large mechanoreceptor, which goes in and activates the enkephalid neuron. That's why rubbing gives you an analgesic effect. Liniments. What do you think liniments do? Not so much a mechanofiber, but remember you put a liniment on, what's it sort of do? Irritates, or whatever you want to say. A large area of the arm or whatever. That's how liniments work. Guess what else? Think of another painkiller where you might activate mechanofibers. Think of how you might do it. What's another thing used to treat pain? Ancient Chinese acupuncture. What they do is put those needles in areas that activate those mechanofibers. That's how acupuncture works. Okay? So, besides the natural opioid system, you also have other mechanisms. Okay? That can cause analgesia. But they work through this pathway. So, we are going to be talking about narcotic analgesics. Okay? And basically, this is how they work. They work in the CNS, they work in the spinal fluid, okay? On these opioid receptors. So where do you find the most opioid receptors? PAG, raphe vagus, substantia gelatinosa. Those are where you find most of the opioid receptors. They're involved in. Okay, later on we'll talk about what receptors are there. So do you get the general picture? Okay. I've already mentioned this, but there are three mechanisms by which opioids, when they bind to the receptor, three things that they do. I already mentioned a few of them already, a couple of them. First thing they do is they inhibit the influx of calcium into the nerve terminals. If you inhibit the influx of calcium into the nerve terminal, what does that mean once again? You don't release those excitatory neurotransmitters, substance P, glutamate, acetylcholine. You don't release them. So that's their mechanism. They also open potassium channels. When they open potassium channels, you hyperpolarize the neuron. So it doesn't fire. And another one I didn't mention was that they inhibit the synthesis of cyclic AMP. What G protein are they going to be coupled to? G sub I or G sub, they call it G sub O now. G sub I or G sub O are both negatively coupled to cyclic AMP. You might have never heard of G sub O. Okay? So that's the mechanisms when the opioid binds to its receptor. Those are the things that it does. Let's see, we find opioid receptors. Oh, don't forget though, whenever you're under stress or anything like that, from the pituitary, you can also release endorphins. So the pituitary plays a part. When you're under stress, things like that, okay, cortisol also, well, we're going to find out ACTH release occurs there. Okay, electrical stimulation of either the periaqueductal gray matter or raphe magnus can almost completely suppress many very strong pain signals entering by way of the dorsal horn spinal roots. That's what you can go up there, put something into the PAG and eliminate pain. But guess what happened? They tried that, and it does. It very effectively eliminates pain. When they went up into the PAG and stimulated that area, what they generated was panic. That's where we believe panic attacks arise out of, the PAG. They discovered that by accident. They were using it to control pain, And when they went and stimulated the PAG, instead, well, I mean, it did give you the analgesia, but it also gave you panic at the same time. Okay. This one's about the large sensory or mechanofibers. I should have said sensory too, because the ligaments work on the sensory fibers, heat, basically. Okay, norepinephrine, I talked about. Okay, terminates on the T cell. Once again, probably alpha-2 receptor. By the way, alpha-2 receptors open potassium channels and decrease cyclic AMP. Okay, I didn't talk, and I'm not too interested in you learning. We're going to find out when it comes to opioid receptors, there's three major types. Okay, there's three major types of opioid receptors: mu, okay, kappa, and delta. Those are the three major types of opioid receptors. Where you see this primary afferent coming in, that's the pain afferent. What we're calling the pain afferent, they're calling the primary afferent. That's coming in to the substantia gelatinosa. See this one right here? This is the T cell. That's the T cell. And you can see that there's different opioid receptors at different places. For example, on the terminal of the pain afferent, you have mu, delta, and kappa receptors. What do? Inhibit the influx of calcium, and therefore decrease transmitter release. On the T cell itself, it looks to be mainly a mu receptor on the T cell. And what it does is it increases calcium efflux, and that hyperpolarizes. So that's a little summary picture there. This here, where it says excitatory cell, in this little picture, okay, in this little picture, excitatory cell is your pain afferent. This is the pain afferent. This is the enkephalin neuron. The T cell, we already called it. Remember, this enkephalin neuron also synapses on the T cell itself. And here's the excitatory neurotransmitters I was talking about. Substance P, glutamate, acetylcholine are some of the excitatory neurotransmitters. The enkephalins are inhibitory. That used to be called the gating mechanism, because what the enkephalin neuron was doing was gating the release of the excitatory neurotransmitter. All right? Then you have this. Okay, there's Crayout, the brain raphe. So then, we got to talk about neuropathic pain. Neuropathic pain is a whole other ballgame. It's a whole other ballgame. Neuropathic pain occurs when you have damage to either the neurons themselves or the central nervous system. Okay? Neurons. It is more of a persistent pain. And the thing about neuropathic pain is it's not very well treated by opioids. It doesn't respond very well to opioids. It's when you get damage themselves. And what they found is in neuropathic pain, on the those receptors themselves and on the pain afferent, you have more receptors. And that sensitizes, okay, the pain afferent. Then what happens is the pain afferent sensitizes, it bombards the spinal cord with pain signals. Okay? And what happens is there's a rearrangement in the spinal cord. So you get what we call central sensitization. So in neuropathic pain, you have both peripheral sensitization, and we also see central sensitization. So it doesn't respond very well, okay? Just the most important thing is relieved not at all or only rather poorly by conventional analgesics, okay? Neuropathic changes, nociceptor, spinal cord, brain. The exaggerated and or abnormal perception of pain and neuropathic pain may have varied causes at sites ranging from damaged sensory nerve endings to areas of reorganization in the spinal cord. That's the word I was looking for. When you bombard the spinal cord with too many pain signals, what happens is you get a rearrangement. Okay? Reorganization of neurons in there, and you get central sensitization. Okay? The common outcome is persistent pain unrelated to the state of tissue injury. Laboratory researchers are seeking greater understanding of cellular and biochemical mechanisms for this change, so that new therapies might better oppose them. We're learning more and more and more. We just don't have any drugs out. This specifically target these new receptors we discovered. Okay, possible mechanisms for neuropathic pain include increased sodium channels in nociceptive neurons. What does that mean? You're going to be easier to excite that neuron if you have more sodium channels. Because every neuron, you have to let sodium in to excite it. Okay? Increased numbers of substance P receptors in the dorsal horn. They're upregulated. Increased numbers of receptors for glutamate. Increased spinal cord levels of pain-producing cytokines. Okay? Interleukin-1, 6, and tumor necrosis factor. Increased spinal cord and brain levels of cholecystokinin, acting as an anti-opioid. I was never aware that CCK had anti-opioid effects. I can't really explain that one. Decreased CNS levels of GABA and or opioid peptides or the receptors. So what do they use for neuropathic pain since opioids? Well, they do still use opioids, but they don't respond very well to opiates alone. What you have to use is other adjunctive things. So let's look at some of them. Sodium channel blockers. What members do you remember were sodium channel blockers? Private first class vaults. Okay, remember what they did? They worked on sodium channels. So sometimes they will use anticonvulsants. Okay? Calcium channel blockers. Gabapentin, and what's the other one? Lyrica. Pregabalin. How did they work? They acted on the alpha-2 delta subunit of calcium channels, and they block the calcium channels. Okay?
That's right.
Orally effective local anesthetics. So what they're doing is that they block sodium channels also. And here we have some other agents we talked about. How do these things work? I guess you would have to put duloxetine on here also. They block the reuptake of norepinephrine and serotonin. We already talked about norepinephrine and serotonin are found in the analgesic pathway, the endogenous analgesic pathway. So these are some of the things they use, and those are the reasons they use them. Then there's this glossary of terms on pain. You can read over those. Okay. What do you think hyperalgesia means? There's analgesia and there's hyperalgesia. Over-response, increased pain, more than normal. Characterized by excessive responsive to a stimulus that is normally painful. Okay, so you can read all those glossaries: neurogenic pain, neuropathic pain, all those. Okay. So then, we're going to move on. We have more theory to get out of the way. Okay? And we are going to talk about, okay, the natural opioids first, the endogenous opioids. You have three main classes. There's probably a fourth one coming. No one talks about it yet. We don't know enough about it. But there are three types, okay, of endogenous opioids. And those are the endorphins. Where do you think endorphin, the name, came from? It's listed here.